The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today for Training and Awareness, the first webinar in our 2024 National Ladder Safety Month webinar series. My name is Joe Zagrabic and I'm here from the American Ladder Institute. We are excited to have Eric Blankenship, Senior Product Manager at Werner, lead today's presentation. But before we begin, a few quick announcements. The American Ladder Institute is a not-for-profit association dedicated to promoting the safe use of ladders. Its members are affiliated with the ladder and ladder component manufacturing industry, and ALI is the American National Standards Institute approved developer of ladder safety standards. National Ladder Safety Month, observed in March and spearheaded by the American Ladder Institute, is the only program dedicated exclusively to promoting ladder safety at home and work. This year is the 8th anniversary of National Ladder Safety Month, and we are excited to bring you a new series of webinars covering safe ladder use. Partnering with ALI for today's webinar is Werner. Werner actively advocates for ladder safety and accident prevention through their range of innovative product solutions, in-person training, and online educational programs. All attendees will remain muted for the program. At the end of the presentation, attendees can ask questions by typing them into the question feature. This webinar is being recorded, and we will share the recording with all attendees later this week. The recording will also be hosted online at laddersafetymonth.com. With that, I will pass it over to Eric.
Thanks, Joe. Let me share my screen. All right, I hope you can all see my screen. Thanks, Joe and the American Ladder Institute for hosting this webinar. Again, my name is Eric Blankenship, Senior Product Manager for Professional Climbing Products at Werner Ladder. And we are really honored to kick off Ladder Safety Month with ALI. From our perspective at Werner, we are safety focused every month, as I'm sure you are too. But March is a great opportunity for us to touch base and bring safety to the forefront. Our job site safety and security teams kick off the building season in a big way in March and are on job sites every day, leading safety trainings for ladders and fall protection. We also partner with NCAA for March Madness and not only provide special podium ladders for the net cutting ceremonies, but air Werner ladder ads that are all focused on safety. Most importantly, we partner with ALI here to reach out to as many people as possible through these webinars. We hope to increase safety on your job sites. This is our big dance this month, just like March Madness, and we appreciate you taking the time today to focus on ladder safety. So today, everything is based on training and awareness. And really, our big question for you today is, is ladder safety top of mind for your crew? So diving in, safety is a culture, and it has to be a part of your mindset to drive down your accident rates on the job. I'm sure there are plenty of safety directors on the call today who can speak to this directly and have a set cadence of safety trainings that they use to make sure their crews are armed with the knowledge they need to succeed. But what about you? Do you have a standing safety meeting? How often do you have a ladder safety training? The picture to the right is on a job site where we have our JSS, our job site safety and security team, that you can actually book and have them come out to do supplemental, ladder and fall protection trainings. It's a great tool you can utilize to have, experts come on site and make sure that questions get answered and that, safe practices are being used on the job site. So we really, in your own safety meetings that you might have on your job sites going forward, we really want to make sure we're encouraging a safety first mindset, show how to perform ladder inspections and show safe use practices. Our goal today is to give you some foundational knowledge to either start or maybe even improve the ladder safety training around your job site. So I won't read this whole slide at you, but what exactly are we training for? Oftentimes people are moving fast on the job, just trying to get things done with what they have at hand. And that's when accidents can really happen. These are the top 5 ladder violations that OSHA gives citations out for 2023. And ladders are the top 3, or number 3 rather, categories that citations get issued for. So this is a high violation area. But let's illustrate these top 5. So the number one citation out there is that the extension ladder wasn't extended 3 rungs above a roof line to gain access. You can see in the picture here that we're actually resting the ladder up against a gutter at the 2nd rung. So you're actually a rung short to be able to meet OSHA ANSI guidelines on setting up your ladder to gain access to the next level. The reason why we want to make sure that the ladder is 3 rungs up above the roof line is that it makes it safer and easier to get off the ladder to gain access, and also to get back on the ladder as you're trying to get down off the roof in this instance. I think this is one that's easy to spot from 100 yards away. This probably kind of leads to why it's the number 1 citation out there. But it's also really unsafe too. So being 3 rungs above really makes it that much easier to find your footing, makes it easier to control the tips of the ladders as you get on it to come down. Because as you're kind of swinging your leg around, I'm sure we've all done it, and you're kind of pushing that ladder away from you in a certain way. Being able to control the tips if they're high enough allows you to ensure that that doesn't happen. Number 2. Ladders shall not be used for unintended purposes. It was kind of fun looking for pictures to illustrate this point here. If you look closely at this picture, I hope your stomach drops. You see here somebody has set up an MT ladder as a scaffold to a 2nd-story landing, and that they have put some plywood on top of the MT ladder, the multi-position ladder, and put a step ladder on top of that. And you couldn't pay me enough money in the world to even get on top of that. But, we see people trying to get the job done, and this is just, a recipe for disaster. We don't want to do anything like this, right? Number 3, super common. We really need to educate against this, that the top step of the ladder shall not be used as a step. It's 2 steps down is the highest standing level on a step ladder. And that's really to help you maintain 3 points of contact so that, if you're working above your head, you have both feet on the ladder and you have the step and the top above you resting into your, hips or your waist and, maintaining that 3rd point of contact and really increasing your stability. Number 4, kind of similar, violation is not maintaining 3 points of contact. This could also be, interpreted as overreaching. You can see in the picture here, the climber has, shifted as far right as possible onto his left leg, and he's actually sticking his right leg off the ladder to just reach that little bit further. It's kind of an extreme case here, but can really create instability in the ladder and can lead to accidents. Number 5, do not use broken ladders. We unfortunately see this too often where, people, have maybe a small issue, maybe not as blatant as the picture illustrates here, where the rung is bent and the rails are bent. But, even if like the foot pads are ripped off the bottom of the ladder, something as simple as that, you really need to tag that ladder and get it back to the tool crib for repair, or, get rid of it in general and get a replacement. Broken ladders are only going to lead to an accident on the job. So what do these violations really mean? Here are some of the 5 most common ladder incidents that we need to train against. Missing the last step of the ladder when climbing down. You really need to exercise caution when climbing down a ladder. Always face the ladder when climbing up or down, and don't skip steps. Missing that last step, if you think about it, if you're going up and down a 6-foot ladder all day long when you're in a certain setting, and then all of a sudden you're in a slightly taller room and you need an 8-foot extension ladder, you're really used to, going up those 4 steps all morning long, and now you find yourself on an 8-foot ladder in the afternoon. It's 6 steps down to the bottom, and you've kind of built some muscle memory to only do 4 steps, and you might find yourself trying to get off the ladder 2 feet up in the air. This is a really common issue on the job site, unfortunately, and we can really address this through proper training and really making sure that nobody's rushing down the ladder, making sure that when they believe that they're on the bottom step, take a look down to confirm that, maintaining your grip on the rails as you climb down before you put your foot down on the ground to get off the ladder. Overreaching, we spoke to this a little bit, but when working from a ladder, keep your center of gravity and body between the side rails. We like to say at Werner, keep your belt buckle inside the rails of the ladder. If you can't reach, the project area once you've ascended the ladder, climb down the ladder, move the ladder closer to the project area, and start from there. That's always best practice. The ladder was not the right size for the job. This kind of gets to, going up further on the ladder than you're supposed to, going up to the second to last step or even the top. One of the factors in determining the right ladder for the job is length. A good rule of thumb when selecting a ladder is to calculate a person's maximum reach height, which is approximately 4 feet higher than the height of the ladder itself. So for example, if you are on a 6-foot ladder, the highest, standing point is 4 feet. And then, 4 feet on top of that is 8 feet. So if you're in an 8-foot room, a 6-foot ladder would be the appropriate ladder to use in that instance. All right, number 4. The ladder was not on firm, level ground. So clear trash, construction materials, other obstructions, away from the base and top of the ladder. The base of the ladder should be safely secured to prevent accidental movement. When you see that, we're really talking about extension ladders. You can tie off onto a roof line, or gutters. And you can also use a ladder with non-slip feet or add outriggers or levelers to the bottom of an extension ladder to increase the footprint. So the writing here really speaks to making sure there's nothing underneath the feet of a step ladder, maybe when you're inside of a job. But then also on the other side, extension ladders, they're often used outdoors, right? So making sure that, you've used the toe picks correctly, you're sunk into really solid ground, and, step on the bottom rung and make sure it's solid before you climb. 3 points of contact not being used when climbing the ladder. You always want to maintain those 3 points of contact, 2 hands and a foot or 2 feet and a hand, right? So you want to make sure that when you're climbing up or down the ladder, you always maintain your balance. So you always have 2 feet on the ladder or 2 hands on a ladder. As you climb down, you need to be able to maintain 3 points of contact. So that's what we're training against. Happening on the job site, trying to diminish those safety incidences that we might run into, God forbid. But what online resources can you bring to your crews to help increase safety knowledge? So outside of these webinars, which we have great attendance for today, you can be doing this with your crews, online with a bunch of resources. ALI and Werner, just to name a few. There's a bunch of online certifications that you can get. These ladder safety training webinars provide a foundation of knowledge that can help crews work safer. These are free resources that you can use to start the conversation with, a new apprentice, or even brush up basic knowledge with seasoned journeymen. Continuing on that note with communication, something new that you might start seeing on your jobs are the move from traditional safety warning labels to safety icons. This is something new that you're going to be seeing on Werner ladders and potentially other ladders in the future. And what we're trying to do is make it easy to understand the warnings that are on the side of the ladder, no matter what language you speak, and make it easier to digest and, just drive down those safety incidences. I know which one, it reads a little bit better to me, but both of these, meet the requirements and, communicate safety. We're just trying to make it easier to communicate on the job site. A few other things that you are going to start noticing, particularly on Werner ladders, is we are consolidating as much as possible to high visibility cues, yellow tips at the top of extension ladders, yellow tops at step ladders, yellow feet We really want to draw attention to the tops and bottoms of the ladder. As people move around the job site, we want to reduce the chance of a ladder getting knocked by somebody walking by or anything else, and really draw attention to the footprint of that ladder. We're also increasing the use of permanent duty rating cues on the ladder top. We do realize that the duty rating label, the safety labels, get painted over by accident, ripped off. Who knows what happens? We want to make sure that what type of ladder that is, so that you can order the correct replacement labels and make your ladder safe to use on the job site once again. We already spoke about the safety icon labels that are coming out. Really simple, do's in green with a green check mark versus red with an X. Really communicating the right thing to do versus the wrong thing. On top of that, on the labels, we actually have a QR code. So number 4 and 5 here, kind of go hand in hand, where we have a QR code taking you to supplemental information to really make sure people understand safe practices for ladder use. So most people on the job are going to have a smartphone. You can use that QR code. It'll take you right to our safety training assets online. You can learn about all these safety icons, and there's quick, 30-second videos to really explain the finer points. And then, on top of that, you can take the online training that I already mentioned before, or even schedule our JSS crew to come out and perform a ladder safety training or even fall protection training on your job site as soon as possible. So how do you choose a ladder? Back to number 2 on that OSHA's top 5 citation list. Not using the correct ladder for the job is, one of the biggest citations. Sometimes people use the wrong tool for the job, or maybe they just aren't sure. So there's 4, common ladder categories out there. Step ladders are really good for, reaching things on a ceiling or at a bulkhead, where you don't have a wall to lean against, right? I think it's not on OSHA's top 5 citations, but leaning a step ladder, we see that way too often on job sites. Regular step ladders are not built to lean against walls, and that's why there are leaning step ladders out there. And so our lean safe step ladders, for example, they have a number of features built into them to allow them to lean safely. In this case, you can see, this is an electrician who is leaning against a bare stud. There is actually an area in the top of the ladder to really rest nicely into studs, but it works on flat walls and outside corners and inside corners. And there's special feet on these ladders as well that make them safe to lean. These ladders also have some special treatments on them as well, to identify from a distance that they are safe to lean. We have large branding on there that says lean safe, and we also have a mixed rail color on there. So this is a 300-pound rated ladder. I know that because the orange rail is in the front, the yellow rail is in the back, and that's indicating from 50 yards away that is a lean safe ladder. Extension ladders are great to gain access to the next level. Anywhere that you need to lean a ladder to get up on and work on a wall or gain access to a roof, or in this case, get up to that next deck to start doing whatever work you need to do. Extension ladders are sometimes the only way to get up there. Now, you always want to make sure that you set up your ladder safely. Use the fireman's rule or the 4-to-1 ratio to set it up. Like we spoke about earlier, you want to make sure that the rungs are 3 rungs above the level you're trying to access if you're going to be getting off the ladder. And then next we have multi-ladders. Multi-ladders are great, kind of the Swiss Army knife of ladders out there. You can use them as step ladders, stairway ladders, wall ladders, extension ladders, or straight ladders maybe. And on the Werners, you can actually take the base off of the bottom of the multi-ladder, put it together with the J-locks, no accessories needed, and use it as a scaffold base for a plank. If you're painting a wall or whatever you're doing, these are really fantastic tools around the job that, can work in a variety of different environments, which are great. So now that you know what ladder you need for the job, you need to make sure you choose the right duty rating. The duty rating on the ladder refers to the climber plus the material they're using. So if you weigh 200 pounds, for example, just for round numbers, then you think about your steel toe boots, your tool bags, how much do those weigh? Are you carrying anything up the ladder while maintaining 3 points of contact? The average bundle of shingles weighs 70 pounds. A gallon of paint weighs roughly 10 pounds. So as a 200-pound climber in this example, you probably want to go get a 300-pound ladder, depending on what you're using. 225 could work. 250, might work as well, depending on everything you're bringing up with you. But we see on a lot of job sites that 300 or 375 type 1A, type 1AA ladders, respectively, are going to be required, really for utmost caution, to make sure that climbers are as safe as possible. Those ladders are, you can see here an example of our color duty rating scale. So 200-pound ladders are typically red. 225-pound ladders are typically green. 250-pound ladders are blue. 300-pound orange and 375-pound yellow, like I already mentioned. And oftentimes the rail color indicates the duty rating of the ladder as well, especially on fiberglass ladders. Or you can verify that with the duty rating label on the ladder as well. After you have determined what type of ladder you need to do the job you're doing, and also the duty rating required for that job, next you really want to decide, do you need a fiberglass or an aluminum ladder? And what that really comes down to is, are you working around electricity or not? On a lot of commercial job sites, fiberglass is the only ladder that's allowed on the site, just to be extra safe. But you need to use fiberglass if you're working around electricity because it's non-conductive. So that's what makes it safe for use around the job site. You can see in the picture on the left, there's a gentleman working on looks like a heater up there. So there's going to be, electrical elements. There's a light right next to him. Who knows what you might run into as you climb a ladder. And if there's any hanging cables power lines or anything like that, you need to make sure you're clear of that. But just in case, if something, you don't see hits the ladder, the fiberglass will not conduct it, and there's a higher chance of being safe and a lower chance of a safety incident. You can see on the picture on the right, the gentleman is climbing a roof to do some roofing work. There's no electrical in sight, so he's perfectly safe to use a aluminum ladder. Aluminum are great. They're lightweight. They're cost effective. They have great climbing performance. You just never want to make sure you never use them around electricity. So ladder safety inspection. Once you have chosen your ladder, the right ladder for the job, the duty rating, the material choice because you're working around electricity or not, and you're getting ready to climb, the first thing on the safety warnings is to inspect your ladder for damage. So I always like to start from the top and work my way down. You inspect the tops or the tips depending on the type of ladder you're looking at. You want to run your hand down the rails and make sure that there's no cracks or splinters in the rails. You want to check all the rungs and make sure they're not dented. Make sure all the rivets are there. Make sure there's nothing loose. You want same thing with the spreaders on step ladders. You want to operate the spreaders, make sure they're operating freely, make sure they're staying down, make sure nothing is hanging loose and that they are tight to the rail and going to keep you safe. On an extension ladder, You need to inspect the rope and pulley, make sure it's not frayed or broken, make sure that it's through the pulley, And then you need to ensure that the duty rating, warning labels are all intact. We need to be able to make sure that we can communicate to whoever's on the job site that this is the right ladder for the job and that it is safe. And then as you get down to the bottom of the ladder, you want to inspect the feet for damage and proper use. So on a step ladder, you're going to want to take a look at the non-marring, non-slip pads on the bottom, make sure they're properly adhered to the feet of the ladder and not ripped off or broken in any way. And very similar on extension ladders, you want to do that, but you also want to make sure that they're able to pivot freely back and forth so that you can find your proper climbing angle or use them in the pick position if you're in soft earth. At Werner.com, we have a number of resources, video resources even, to help train individuals to perform ladder safety or ladder inspections, as well as inspection forms to really make sure that all the points are getting covered and as many people on your crew as possible can consistently perform ladder inspections, and it's just going to keep that many more people that much more safe. So with that, I hope you have taken away some foundational knowledge to keep safety top of mind on your job sites. And as a reminder, there are a number of trainings coming up this month for Ladder Safety Month. Today, we just did training and awareness, very foundational. But we next week on the 14th, we have inspection, maintenance, and proper use. Coming up after that is stabilization, setup, and accessories. I'll be leading that one again. And on the 28th, we're doing inspection, maintenance, and proper use yet again in Spanish. And with that, I really appreciate your guys' time, and I'll open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Eric. And as a reminder, people can enter their questions into the question field. So we have one in here that is, what is the range for the different size ladders for each duty rating, i.e. 300-pound ladder ranges from 6-foot ladder to 24-foot ladder?
So it depends on the type of ladder we're talking about. So, step ladders, for example, typically start at 2 feet and they go up as high as 14 feet. We make, at Werner anyway, we make, ladders at most of those lengths at all duty ratings. Commonly, we really do 2 foot through 8 foot. In all duty ratings. Above that, if you're going to a 10, 12, 14-foot ladder for steps, we want to make sure that people are using 300 or 375-pound ladders. And, for the most part, we're limited to those duty ratings at the higher sizes. On extension ladders, we make extension ladders from 16 to 40 foot commonly in all duty ratings. Above that, we have a number of larger specialty extension ladders, 44 foot. I think the largest we make is actually a 60 foot. Like, for example, that 60 foot is actually a 3-section extension ladder goes real tall for you. Did that answer the question, Joe?
Yes. And then you mentioned how fiberglass ladders are frequently used on job sites. So I would assume those go through a lot of wear and tear. So what's the typical lifespan of a fiberglass ladder?
Yeah, so that's a loaded question. Any ladder, fiberglass or aluminum, it really depends on how it's treated. I don't know about whoever asked the question rather. But I don't take my ladders in at night. They stay on top of the truck, right? So fiberglass in particular, they are susceptible to UV damage. Being out on top of your truck in, the sun, rain, snow, whatever, that will degrade fiberglass over time. So it is really dependent on where you are and how the ladder is treated. There's a big difference between where I am in Chicago and, Tucson, Arizona. The sun's a little stronger down there than up here. So you always want, and that's, why we need to do ladder inspections, and you want to inspect the ladder to make sure that the rails are intact and strong. You will notice, I'm sure most of the people on this call are aware that, a fiberglass ladder, it's nice, new, and shiny when you first get it, but the color can kind of fade over time. There isn't any real degradation of strength over time from UV degradation. But once the ladder rail starts to, we call it bloom, once the fiberglass gets outside of the resin, and it becomes kind of, an orange ladder will become kind of gray. It's probably time to do a very extra thorough inspection and really consider if it's time to take that ladder out of service or not. There are a number of 3M materials that you can use to recoat a fiberglass rail to stop the blooming from becoming a problem. We have that available, or we have all of those listed on our website. But, other than that, I can't stress enough the importance of, really, doing your ladder inspections often. You are supposed to do a ladder inspection before you climb every time, and make sure that the ladder is safe before you get on it in the first place.
Great. What's the highest point a worker can step on a leaning step ladder that's placed against a structure?
Can you repeat the question, Joe?
Yeah. What is the highest point a worker can step on a leaning step ladder that's placed against a structure?
So when you're using a leaning ladder in leaning mode, you can go up one extra step, actually, versus a standard step ladder. So for example, on a 6-foot ladder, the highest standing level in step ladder mode is at the 4th rung. In leaning mode, you can go up to the 5th rung if you need to.
Perfect. Let's go through the queue. If the safety and product information stickers on your ladders are damaged, how should you go about replacing those?
Yeah, so you can go back to the manufacturer of your ladder. So for Werner, you can call our customer care team and tell them what ladder you have, and or they may be able to help you identify what type of ladder you have, and we can get you replacement labels and make sure that you're ANSI compliant.
I know you mentioned earlier in one of your answers about leaving, your ladder on the truck overnight. Is there any other tips that you can give on proper ladder storage?
Yeah, that's a good one. So something I hear about way too often, especially on longer ladders, if you have them on a truck rack or a van rack that maybe isn't long enough for them, they can vibrate, driving down the road, and that can lead to ladder damage. So we really recommend that a ladder does not overhang from the furthest out support more than 4 rungs. So if you have a 20-foot extension ladder, well, let's go bigger. If you have a 40-foot extension ladder, to transport that around a job site, in the closed position, it's 20 feet long. So that means your van rack should be, supporting it, out to, forgive me, I'm doing quick math here. Your van rack would need to be a minimum of 16 feet long to properly support it. And that would be 4 feet hanging off at the front, and 4 feet hanging off at the back. And actually, that wouldn't be DOT safe. You can't go more than 3 feet past your bumper. So that'd be 3 feet off of the back and, 4 feet at the front with a 17-foot rack. So you really want to maintain, so don't go 3 feet past your bumper, and make sure the front is supported to a minimum at the 4th highest rung, if that's simple enough to understand.
I know you mentioned one of your earlier slides, but can you talk a little more and explain what the 4-to-1 ratio is?
Yeah, so 4-to-1 speaks to the, I think somebody else will be talking about this maybe in the safe climbing and positioning, or proper use rather, that's coming up next week and at the end of the month in Spanish. I can speak to it more, and I'll try to have some pictures supplementally when I speak in stabilization, setup, and accessories. But here, top level, 4-to-1 rule, or you'll hear it referred to as the fireman's rule, is when you're setting up an extension ladder, you want to make sure that when you have the toes of your boots on the feet of the ladder, that you reach out, if you stand up straight and you reach your arms out, if you visualize creating a triangle between your body, your arms, and the angle of the ladder, you want that to be, I believe it's 71 degrees, 75.1 degrees, I believe it is. Don't quote me on that. I'll have it updated in the deck in 2 weeks if somebody doesn't speak to it next week. That is a 4-to-1 ratio, and that's the proper angle where the load of your weight and whatever materials you have is properly being carried through the rails of the ladder down to the ground, and the feet can't slip off. What we commonly see is the ladder is set up too shallow, and it looks less scary, less intimidating to have the ladder set up a little bit shallow. And when you climb, and if it's way too shallow, you can actually, the feet won't maintain traction, and the feet can slide out, and the tips will slide down the wall as the feet get pushed away from the wall, and it's not a good day for anybody. So we really want to make sure that when you're setting up an extension ladder, your toes, your boots are on the feet of the ladder, and you have it set up at an angle so that when you stand up straight and put your arms out, you can nicely rest your palms on the rungs of the base of the ladder, and that'll make sure that you're at the proper climbing angle, 4-to-1 or fireman's rule.
As you just mentioned, fireman, we do have a question here that says, do you have any general advice for firefighters who are using both single and extension ladders?
Ooh, I wish I had expertise in that area. At Werner Co., we do not make fire-rated ladders. I'm aware that there are a whole number of rules for firemen's ladders. They need to be able to stand up to very high heat environments and not buckle. I don't want to say anything that might go against a code I'm not aware of, unfortunately.
Good call. All right, well, we want to thank everyone for joining us today, and to Eric for sharing his expertise with us. We hope you have enjoyed today's webinar on training and awareness. You can find the recording of each webinar in this series online at laddersafetymonth.com, along with additional safety resources. Thank you again to Werner for sponsoring today's webinar, and to all of you for joining us and being so engaged throughout the month. Have a great day, and happy National Ladder Safety Month.